So today we're here with a group of women from our community to talk about the role of women in both community and cultural life. Each person has been hand-selected due to their experience and skills, I guess we can say. And I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves and let them get to know you guys a little bit.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Amanda Anderson Clausen, also known as Saxa. I'm a wife and a mother. For those of you who might know Ox Clausen, that's my husband. Together, we are raising 5 kids. We both are in the faith and we're raising our children in the faith. But on top of that, we both own and operate Borelord LLC. Ox's side of the business is Borelord Boots and Leather, and I operate Borelord Botanicals. We are also founding members of the Jordsfolk Fellag out here in Wisconsin. My husband and I not only run a small business and have a community that we're so proud to be a part of, but we also have a small farmstead that we try to operate with and for the folk with the Fellag. And so it kind of wraps itself around with tradition, traditional skills. He makes boots and I work with plants and gardens. And we have a lot of great connections within the community that also have their own specialties. I'll let Dana explain some of her stuff herself. Because I don't know that much about mushrooms like she does. Anyway, with that, I'm also currently working towards my doctorate of science in integrative health. I just got accepted recently into the doctorate program, and I'm going to be specializing in herbal medicine with that doctorate. I currently already do hold a master's degree in herbal medicine, hence why I own and operate Borelord Botanicals. I like to do more of the clinical side of it, and I like to study where our traditions come from, why we are using herbs from a more ancestral standpoint, cultural standpoint. A lot of times this is called ethnobotany or archaeological ethnobotany, and that's not very well known today. You can't usually go to colleges and get an ethnobotanical degree anymore. So I've found a workaround to the best of my ability, but I have been really drawn into bringing that back into our culture and into our community. So that is something that I'm very passionate about. I'm very passionate about women supporting each other and bringing these traditional skills back to life. So that's a little bit about me.
Saxa, where can people reach you if they have questions about any of the, is it herbology, or is that the proper term?
You can use herbology. That's a correct term. Herbalism, herbology, botany, herbal medicine, those are all correct terms. They can find me on Telegram under Borelord LLC. That's something both Ox and I operate, or they can go to our website, www.borelordllc.com. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram for Borelord Botanicals. So very easy to find, but in Telegram, I'm more commonly known as Saxa. I reserve that name specifically for people of the folk, but I am legally known as Amanda Anderson Clausen, MSHM, so that just stands for herbal medicine. So if they see that, don't get confused. I am a real person, and it's not an acronym. I just prefer to go by my heathen name within folk, and I reserve that for community versus outside of the community.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Thank you. So next we have Madison, and Madison brings a unique perspective as a younger lady coming into the culture and the faith for, I don't know, have you said over 5 years?
Yeah, so I'm Madison Skitlin. I'm currently 23, and I've been a heathen since like 15, 16, but I haven't been fully practicing for that long. I would say about 3-4 years. So I consider myself as a lifelong student of many things, of Norse mythology, heathenry, whatever you want to call it. I am an artist too, currently learning some Norwegian style stuff, and then also woodworking I recently got into for like the second time, so we'll see if that sticks. I am a young wife. I just got married. My husband isn't as into this as I am, which I would like him to listen to this and get more into it, so that's exciting. Let's see. I run a little channel. It's supposed to be for my art, but it's been a really busy year. So it's been more lore or practice posting in there, and that is Soul's Daughter, which is where you can find me at on Telegram. I go by Moss, but my name's Madison. I just really like Moss. And yeah, I would like to add a different perspective as a young woman who's had a little exposure, but not as much as the other ladies in this recording. And that's about it.
Well, and as you touched upon, though, you bring a unique perspective of coming into this from, the younger generation, and the fact that you're in a household where your partner's not necessarily, he may be heathen adjacent, but maybe is not as involved in it. And so you're talking that's the goal of what we're talking about today, is how to make these customs and traditions more family-centered, family-oriented, to bring women in, how women can be involved, things like that. So I think you guys are all going to have really good perspectives. So thank you. Next, we have Hrafna.
Hi. So I go by Hrafna on Telegram and on the internet at large. I am a heathen craftswoman, and I'm a professional florist. I also make jewelry and runestones and embroider and lots and lots and lots and lots of other stuff. I came to heathenry from the Lutheran Church, actually, but I was raised as an atheist, and so I had to largely figure out spirituality by myself from scratch. Many of you know me from my craftwork business, which is where you can find me on Telegram and pretty much everywhere else, all over the internet, Wheat and Sky. I also am an herbalist. My dealings with herbalism are largely cataloged under the same name, Wheat and Sky. I am very intensely interested in phytotherapeutics, so basically bringing the modern, scientific lens of herbalism as closely to herbal medicine as we possibly can. I'm incredibly interested in European ancestral tradition as it specifically meshes with the phytotherapeutic method. That's been something that I got certified for this year, and then also I've been studying for about the last decade. And then I also run my Substack, which is also called Wheat and Sky, where I kind of write about anything. It's been a lot of herbalism and women's health recently. Women's health and wellness is something I'm extremely passionate about as well. Yeah, I've been a heathen for about 3 years now. I actually reverted to heathenry after I got married. My husband is not a heathen at all, and I am sort of in the unpopular camp because I'm pretty ambivalent about what he personally might believe. But I've been a heathen for about 3 years now, and I am from Alberta, Canada.
Very nice. I'm glad you were able to make it. And you do make some amazing art. I've always enjoyed looking at all the beautiful things you guys can create. That's one thing that I don't think women get enough credit for, is their artistic inputs and ability to create. Okay, so next we have Dana. Oh, and by the way, Dana is one of the co-hosts with us here. She's going to be stepping up and helping us do more of these, so get to know her. She's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, this is my debut, my practice. So hi, I'm Dana, and opposite from Madison being younger, getting into it, I have the more seasoned perspective, being the only grandmother in the group. Again, my name's Dana. I'm from Wisconsin. In Telegram, you'll see me there under Awsmom. So I'm a wife, mother, and grandmother. My husband and I have been cultural Odinists, appreciators of the iconography and symbolism and culture since the late 80s, early 90s. And then 5-6 years ago, with an interest in our culture, loss, and a lot of people don't say this, slightly controversial, but a little bit of help from psychedelics too. It was an interest to cope with loss. That brought me into being an actual practicing heathen. And then I joined one of the larger heathen organizations in 2020. And honestly, at that time where I had spiritual beliefs, but I had to figure out what I actually believed in. So it was kind of a fake it till you make it thing. But nonetheless, at this point, 100%, the gods are real, full practicing heathen. On that note, currently a member and attending the Kvasir Academy to help serve our local community as Bulgithia. But my focus is really working with and for our local women. It is my great love. I did not have those mentors, so you'll see when we go into the questions for women, we're just not looking historically at what women did, but for a lot of us women, we don't have current mentors because of just feminism and the current state of society. So we're just rebuilding everything. So yeah, I'm trying to be the mentor that I wish I would have had. And if I could go back and start again with my daughters too, to bring this to everybody, I'd love to do that. And I'm lucky that we have a healthy local community of women like Amanda and Madison, and looking forward to doing more of that going forward.
And then next we have Alison. She is a member of the Ermine folk and one of the leaders, and a great person, very welcoming. So welcome, Alison.
A great person. I like that.
One of my favorites.
Hi. Well, oh, sweet. Hi, I'm Allison. You don't often find me on Telegram, but if you do, it's under It's Not Allison with one L. As Kyle mentioned, I am one of the leading members of the Ermine folk. I've been with the group, and I've been a practicing heathen since 2010. Life has been wonderful since finding practicing heathens and having a community where our kids can grow up together, and that's a huge passion of mine, is and what I do, my main driving force with the Ermine folk, is creating community, a healthy, vibrant community where kids can, run around, play, learn about the gods, learn about their ancestral culture, and really spark in them that the ancestral path. But in addition to being a member of the Ermine folk, as I mentioned, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm also an educator. I teach adult education, vocational education. So I love to come at things from a very rational and questioning perspective. And I advocate asking questions, using clear communication in life, in schools, in religion, and using that to help draw more people into the faith. I have a difficult time discussing like myself, my hobbies and things like that, but I dabble in a lot of arts, cooking. I think I would be pretty silly not to mention the fact that when we have our large gathering, folkish summer hallowing every year, I run the kitchen. So it makes me really happy to feed people when we come together. And yeah.
Well, but all the work you guys are doing with the Ermine folk has been great. I mean, from firsthand experience, the getting to show up and actually meet you guys in person and see how structured you guys were, disciplined, how well organized you were. It's a shame because if you guys had more people and more support, I truly believe you guys would be leading the way in all of heathenry.
Yeah.
You guys would have been the first big group to be able to get us to having like giant festivals.
Yeah.
And I think it's still a possibility.
It's still a possibility. And, let's not scoff at the fact that, our folkish summer hallowing brings in 100, 150 adults and kids.
Yep.
And we've been putting on that event since 2011. So, and every year there's more and more people. So yeah, our goal is to normalize heathenry and make it something that is recognizable as a real religion and a real community, where before it had this taint of being the land of misfit toys. We want to make it something where moms, grandmas, children, husbands, sons, cousins, sisters, everybody comes together and we worship the gods. And, to Kyle, your point of the types of events that we put on, one of the things that I think I'm most proud of with being a member of the Ermine folk is that we take things so seriously. We analyze every detail of what we do and why we do it. And when we come to ritual, we can say without batting an eye, the gods are with us. We have seen them. they have been there. We see them, and it's not just us doing the ritual, it's the people around us. And that is one thing. My husband has been a quasi practicing heathen for about 10 years, but he always says, seeing is believing. And I believe that first FSH that he came to, he saw Odin. There's no doubt. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's, you guys, like I said, you guys have done great things. A lot of you guys have, and even if people don't necessarily know you guys by name personally yet, they're going to, and that's one good thing, because we're constantly building, we're constantly pushing forward, we're doing things. And that's the important thing that we're going to kind of get into now, is the role of women in heathenry, both historically and modern, and in the future. So we're looking at this as a threefold kind of aspect: past, present, future. So what we have here is what we're looking at as a general idea that we're going to kind of discuss at first is how are women represented in our lore and ancestral customs. What lessons can we take from their historical roles within the folk and faith? And when we're getting into that, one of the important things that I think we can take into consideration here is that the role of women inside of a culture is integral to the culture's success. And what do we mean exactly by culture? Culture is not just a religion, but religion is a part of culture. Culture is an expression of arts. So it's when all of the things that we do come together. We at the Norwegian Society have kind of broken this down and codified into like roughly around 12 fundamentals of a culture. And so you have like different types of arts and food and dance and, things that people do that outwardly express their ancestral heritage. And women have to be there. They have to be a part of it. It cannot be a boys' club. It needs to be something that women, children, families feel safe at, they feel comfortable being a part of. And I think that we need to take time to kind of break this messaging down in hopes that when the listeners hear this, they can internalize the information and figure out how to apply it to their situations. So from there, I have one quote I would like to read about a comparison, actually. This is a comparison between, we have Tacitus, who wrote about the Germanic people in the year 98 AD, and then we have what's called Paul Histor. It's by Salinius. And what they're doing is they are comparing the British Isles to the Germanic lands, and they're talking specifically about women. So what Tacitus says here is, indeed, you can secure a sure hold on these nations if you compel them to include among a consignment of hostages some girls of noble family. More than this, they believe there resides in women an element of holiness and a gift of prophecy. And so they do not scorn to ask their advice or lightly disregard their replies. Now, Salinius, who wrote a little bit later, he breaks it down, and I'm going to skip part of the quote. I'm just going to read it. He says, "The men of the island even now preserve an old custom. They do not use coins. They give and accept obtaining the necessities of life by exchanging rather by money. The reverence of gods and the men and women equally declare knowledge of the future." We see that women have always been kind of held to have this, I don't know if it's like a prophetic capability, where they were always gone to as seers, like vulvas and stuff like that. And so I think that the idea that women disregarded largely in our culture comes from Christian influence. It's not something that we actually find so much in pagan cultures. So with that, I was curious which one of you thinks that they have a good point to start with. Hrafna?
Sure, yeah. Throughout our histories, what I have found is that women are upholders of like domestic order as well. Men, I think, I see them taking credit for being the more orderly sex, but I don't know that I think that that's true across the board necessarily. I think when it comes to a home or when it comes to a hearth, which is truly the foundational minimal unit of society, would be like a family. Women are definitely the keepers of orders in those spheres. So look at the term homemaker, for instance. So domestic order, by that I mean enforcing things like morality and normalcy is a big one. Women are biologically wired, as we know, for social cohesion. We see this across culture and time frame. It makes really good biological sense that we would be this way. We know in the modern day now that high cortisol is like a huge predictor of troubles, particularly with conceiving children, in both parties to some extent, but especially in women. And then physiologically and socially, it just makes the most sense to have women who are the most affected by chronic high stress to be the ones who create the domestic peace. That's one important prong I've noticed about women's historical roles. And then, you know, it's really clear to me that the average woman was not leaving her village to participate in raids. There's the physical disparity, but the reproductive cost of losing one healthy woman is a lot higher than the reproductive cost of losing one healthy man. So, like, sorry, gentlemen, but you just caught the evolutionary short end of the stick. So then the other prong that I have been thinking about is, with regards to women's roles, is this great motivational role. Women, and particularly wives, have been like the great motivators of male action in history. So directly speaking, like the famous examples are like the American first ladies. There's lots of stories about them. And then everybody, I think by this point, has read those like really freaky letters that Napoleon sent to Josephine. But indirectly speaking, right, like what is the purpose of raiding if not to secure stuff for your family home? And then also, what do you mean by home? So, you know, and what is a war if not the assertion that we are taking this land so that our families can grow on it instead of yours, right? So there's this like old C.S. Lewis quote that I think about quite often, and like regardless of your personal feelings on C.S. Lewis, it goes like, the homemaker is the ultimate career. Like everything in society is done toward the end of the homemaker. And so I think it rings true for me anyway. And I just don't think that you have a proper society without your women being happy and safe. And so there's outlying examples, of course. You know, women have been priestesses and important political figures and even monarchs and everything like that. But ultimately, we are going to be the upholders of domestic order and the motivators of male action. Those are like the two things that I think are pretty consistent. And I personally have always thought that was a very honorable position to have. I don't think that there is anything diminishing about being a homemaking commoner.
No, I think it's so much more than that, because the home is the start to the civilization. You know, family is the cornerstone of civilization, but family relies upon the home. And so this actually leads into a really interesting thing. I'm not gonna dive too deep into it, but the concept of kindred. A lot of people and groups actually use this term interchangeably, but incorrectly with other words. So they think that kindred just means like a group of people that get together and they swear an oath to a cause or something. It's not really what a kindred is. That's a fellowship. So like a kindred is a group of interrelated families. And these families have to be strong and healthy. And in order for you to have a strong, healthy family, you have to have the dual roles of male and female. And the females have such an important task in our culture because they are the ones that actually carry the culture forward. And you brought up a specific point about one of the, this is a really good example of how women help with the culture, right? To like keep it going. In the Flattier book, which comes from Iceland, it's like one of the largest collections of pagan literature, but it's got a lot of Christian influence into it later, I think. It's not like fully translated into English either, but there's a quote, and it says, "The men sat drinking as long as they liked that night, and then went to bed. But after they had left the hall, the queen Theory took down the hangings and instead put a black and gray cloth until it was all covered. She had done this because it was a custom in those days when tidings of grief came to do as she did. And this is kind of showing you that, like, she, in the home, she was the queen, that she just started decorating it in the way to commemorate the fallen. It's actually something that they were doing for a funeral. And we see this kind of play out all the time because, as we talked about with culture and food, women did a lot of cooking. It was a traditional thing for them to do all this, like, cooking and stuff. So they would be making foods, and, like, everybody loves food. Every single bloat, there was food. There was people that were eating. You know, so it's like they always had roles to fill, because you cannot have a culture if you do not have an entire civilization and community running it. Before I get off, let's go with, who's next? Saxa, do you got anything?
Yeah, I think one thing I want to touch on, you did a really good job with your points on there, but some people may not realize that, like, we're also known as the key holders. Like, this is a practice that here, that Jords folk and Clausen clan definitely honors, is key holding. And so we make a point to call that out. So anytime we are hosting an event, I actually carry my keys, the keys to our home. We have an old farmhouse here from Wisconsin, and they're actually cool skeleton keys, so it's a cool aesthetic thing too. But if I were to go to, say, Madison's house or to Dana's, I would never carry my keys because I am not the key holder of that home. I am a guest. And so that is a status symbol, but also a respect symbol, that you are walking into somebody else's home. You're going to show respect to that family, to that woman of the house. You're going to offer a hand. And that's, again, culture. You know, we're bringing forth a set of, behaviors too, not just beliefs, not just rituals. It's a set of behaviors. And it goes down to the very core values of just being a decent human being and showing respect and being mutually reciprocating, that gift for a gift, if you will. And I think that's an important note to have as well, regardless of if you're hosting or if you're somebody else's house or property. There's that respect, and community is built stronger within a culture when that's provided.
I absolutely agree with you on that. That's a great point. So, Dana, do you have anything that you would like to go on, like, historically, about some of the roles of females that you find to be interesting, that maybe lead to how you view things today?
Yeah, definitely tying together some of the points that the ladies have touched on so far, outside of the Disir, the goddesses, Valkyries, Norns, things like that. Historically, our roles most notably were as prophetesses, but in the role of, like, ambassador and diplomat. There's Valeda and Ghana and Gambara, or even looking at one of our texts, the Voluspa is the spot of the vulva. And I think part of that role in diplomacy, ambassadorship, and we'll say our recognition of patterns is in preserving that culture. Again, the maintaining the safety, the standards, the moral codes. Those are all part of the same thing. Or there's a quote that I've heard before where men build a house, women make it a home. And in
100%.
preserving those, sorry, what?
No, I was saying 100%. Yeah, women make it at home.
Yeah, and that's part of the traditions, the pattern recognition, the key holder. And I like, on top of that, with the key holder, obviously there's your male head of the household more responsible for procuring resources, things like that. But the key holder would also be would delegate responsibilities, decide who would drink first, who eats, who's a guest in your home, things like that. Because we're trying to maintain culture, we're trying to maintain safety, standards, morality. And all of those things go together as part of the same thing, and, like, being the glue of your community. We like predictability. We like to know that our kids will have resources. We like to know that people will uphold our traditions. So, maintaining is our biggest role, and those are all key elements of that.
Madison, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
Oh yeah, I don't want to repeat what everybody is saying, so I'll try not to. Very valid points, and a huge role we have is keeper of the keys, keeper of the homes. Frigg herself, was keeper of the earth. So I would like to point out that Another role we have that is attested to is healers. So we have Freya herself, who has been under code names, but have been proven to be Freya, actually, to be a healer. Actually, it is in, I don't know how to say this, the Fjolsvensmal, where she, under the name Minglad, she's sitting on the hill of healing, waiting for her lover, and actually she had, I think it was 9 other women that were in, like, her little posse.
Yeah,
the goddess of healing here wasn't there. Higher? Yes.
Is it EIR?
Yeah, EIR.
Yeah, IR.
Higher.
Yep.
So yeah, another role is healing, and of course teaching their wisdom. Odin often sought out the vulva for, sorry, my cat's meowing. Sought out wisdom, and actually he, to my understanding, he was taught magic by Freya. No?
Okay, so yes, according to Snorri, but what Snorri is getting from that, he's getting that from Lokasana, where it says that she was sitting next to the Blythe Reagan while they were practicing Sather. But the idea, this is where Snorri takes the idea that Sather magic was a female's practice and that it came from women. It didn't actually come from women. It came from Surt, who William and others will identify as Loder. It sounds confusing, but when you actually listen to the entire argument, you're going to be like, what the hell? Because it gets into Ragnarok and how it's brother versus brother, how Loder tried to steal the mead and from Mimir, who is Odin's uncle, and that caused problems. And then that's when he got locked up out in Surt's realm. Surt, yeah, there's so much to it, but like it just, we would have to go over, we'd have to explain source to source to source, and then you'd be like, well, but like once you hear it, you'd be like, whoa, it's an interesting theory. So yeah, regardless though. So when you guys, I'm going to ask you this, right? Maybe, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I would like to get your perspective, because people are going to hear us saying things like, they're the keeper of the keys. What does that mean to you though? Like, what does that actually physically entail when you are the keeper of the keys at your house? What are your responsibilities? How does this play into your role inside of your family, inside of the culture, anything?
Well, I'm still learning I have a pretty good idea of the roles. So, like, as a young woman who just married and has lovely mentors, Dana and Amanda, I do have guidance, fortunately. My parents weren't really teachers for this sort of thing. So, keeper of the keys could really mean just keeping order of the house, caring, nurturing your children or your husband, in my case, because there's no children yet. You really have to take on traditional gender roles and for this. So the women bring such a very lighthearted aspect to the home, and I mean feminine aspects like arts, music, love. And though men can do that themselves, it's just more of a natural thing for us women to do that. And of course, the traditional rules of cleaning and cooking, which correspond to keeping order of the house.
So to me, what it sounds like is you're basically explaining that your responsibility to upsee the order and structure of your house to be successful. Right. Like, so yep. Like, and I think that's admirable. And a lot of people look for something like that. They want to see that inside of a relationship with somebody. It's a step in a right direction in so many ways. Whereas like right now we're stuck in this individualistic mindset of like, well, I just do what I need to do for myself. But when you take on that acceptance of that responsibility of being a part of a family and being a part of a community and being part of something greater than yourself, you're kind of like you're taking your place among your folk in a way, because it's like you're acknowledging that like there is, we're collectivist, and it's not supposed to be just like about yourself, but it's supposed to be about your success in the family line matters the most. Saxa, I know you got something that you're going to add to that. It's going to be great.
Yeah, no, thanks. Well, no, absolutely. And Maddie has it spot on. And it's one of those things, because I have children who are various ages. And yes, we have a structure. It isn't perfect, and every family is going to be different. But it's the order of the house in the sense that it's functioning, and it's functioning to the best of its ability for the family and for everybody involved. And not, like, to your point, Kyle, it's not just one person. It's not just for me. It's not just for you. It's for the family. Even from like a hosting standpoint, we want everybody to have a good time. We want everybody to feel welcome and not go hungry, not go thirsty, feel included, just being recognized as an individual, but also at a group in large. But for my family in particular, when we're operating our home, I don't just do all the cleaning and the cooking. My kids also, learn these life skills. And it's funny, because parents, they get the question, well, why do I have to do it? Why do I have to do this chores? Why do I have to do that? Because you live here. And I'm not going to give you, this is my own parenting advice, take it or leave it. Everybody's different. My kids don't get an allowance for doing chores. They live here too. They will contribute into making their house a home. I am not a maid. I am not a servant. But I will make sure, I will make sure that we have everything we need to cook a healthy meal. We have everything we need to do cleaning. And I'm not expecting my kids to do everything all the time. But these are life skills that when they become adults and they have their own families, they are going to need to understand how to do them, regardless if they are a daughter or a son. And when you're in a relationship, and obviously with these modern days, there is going to be tie over. So Ox does do dishes. He does cook from time to time. He's a better cook than I will, than I am. So we'll have that full on argument about it. But I'm a better baker. So yeah, it's not just this modern construct of like, oh, you have to cook for me. Oh, you have to clean for me. It's making the family.
Child management.
Well, okay. So
I actually want to jump off of both points because Sax is completely right. And I'm a firm believer in all the children need to learn all of the tasks. And I know that we had sort of gotten into this earlier about the concept of women's roles versus men's roles, and what does that even mean, especially in, modern society, which, as much as we don't want to be slaves to modernity, the reality is that we are modern people, and we have to fit into modern society in the sense that we have to be able to function. But bringing it back to the roles, the key keeper, household management is not just about the cooking, the cleaning, the child rearing. Of course, that is massive. It's also, managing finances. You have, as a wife, as a mother, you have to be able to understand where the money is going, the ins and the outs, even if you're not the main breadwinner in the household, because that is a traditional male role. Yes, you provide for the family. You still have to understand the management of finances. And that is a huge responsibility traditionally for women. Men were gone a lot in every society from history onward. Men were gone. Women had to manage the household. And we do have primary sources from the sagas and Germanic law and Celtic law that, women were responsible for managing the labor, managing the food production, the food processing, the sales of that processed food when their male kin were away. We have, and I love that somebody brought up, the wives of the founding fathers here in the US. A lot of people may not know that Martha Washington brought a huge amount of property and wealth to their marriage, and she was responsible for it. There are quotes of Washington saying, like, yeah, I can't really deal with this because it's my wife's stuff. Sorry. So that is definitely a massive part of being the key holder in the household, understanding the finances, understanding prioritization of what the family needs and also what the community needs, because sometimes the needs of the community might actually outweigh the needs of the individual, and understanding how to make sure that your family sees the big picture. And this might be a little bit controversial, but also making sure that from a young age, the children are being taught how to honor the gods and the traditions. That, to me, that is a massive responsibility with being a key holder of the home. You are responsible for the early education of the children. Therefore, you are responsible for their spiritual health at a young age.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, that also can be tied into the father of the home. We do have direct attestations that say that, like, the male of the home would be the gothi for private things. And then obviously if it was a public thing, they would have an actual member of the gothar or a priest that would do it. But like you said, right, like it's like working together. It's that balance of these masculine and feminine energies that make the world turn.
Yeah.
It's men can end up just destroying ourselves. I mean,
and so can women. And
yeah,
that's,
well, exactly. Absolutely.
I want, before we get super deep, I do think that our largest challenge is finding that balance between masculinity and femininity. You need to have a balance, and there's going to be a shifting balance. It's never going to be 50-50. There is no equality in nature. Sometimes things are going to have to be a little bit more feminine. Sometimes things are going to have to be a little bit more masculine, depending on the situation and what's appropriate. But finding that balance between the two, because what we're seeing now is very much an overcorrection on the feminized end of things as a reaction to, the over masculinized air quotes.
It's one thing I think that we can look at as like a direct example of a good balance is during Sumbul, there's this position called the Yula Bora. And this is typically said to be a female of the house that would come down. They would be a horn bearer and they would pass the horn around. There's, somebody in the 70s or something like that, I think 70s to the 90s, wrote a book, and they said that they believe that why this was taking place is that it was grounding men from boasting too much, because the women were kind of there to keep them in check. Like, come on, don't let your egos go too crazy here. Let's keep it in the realm of having a good time, but being realistic about what we're saying. But it shows, like, we have so many instances. We have other quotes from Tacitus talking about women standing on the sideline of a war, and how the men were so worried about women being, well, actually about all of them being enslaved, that it was like they would rather die. So they were so prepared to fight for their folk because they looked at it as like they had to protect their women. So I think that, like, historically, the idea that women were just kind of treated like property and disregarded. I mean, we have later law codes that protect them from all kinds of things. And Christianity did not just come in and civilize our people. These are ancient ideas that are found, in all kinds of polytheistic cultures. There are differences. There are people in different cultures that do not view women in the same light, but I would always contend it and make the argument that our ancestors actually cherished their women, put them up on a pedestal because they knew that they were the only advancement of the folk. And we have, I want to say, Tacitus talked about what would happen if a female was caught. Like, when they talk about adultery, the sad truth is that we don't really see that applied to men. That is mostly applied to women. If women are married and they get seduced by another man, they were beaten in the street. Their head was shaved. Now, this is key mythologically to the Loki and the Sif story. Sif, when Sif's hair was cut off, Loki was basically calling her a whore, an adulterer. And Thor came in, and they weren't even married at this time, but Thor came in and stopped it. That's why Loki had to go and have the hair made, and all this stuff. But that's because this we can look at the lore and see these common threads that also align with our legal system and all kinds of other aspects of our culture that still are a part of our lives today.
And I want to say the reason for being so harsh with adultery laws really stems from the value of a woman and what she is able to do. Men are disposable when it comes to creating life. A single man can have hundreds of kids in his lifetime. A woman has a very short time to be able to procreate, and it takes a long time and it takes a massive toll. So the life that and what a woman goes through makes her exceptionally valuable. You can only get one baby unless, twins, whatever. But that is the reason why adultery for women was so harshly punished, because the value of the life that you create was so high. We don't want just any Tom, Dick, or Harry getting in there and interrupting the ancestral line. So
yes,
while we might think of it as being like, oh, that's just rude, it makes perfect sense, and it does speak to the value of women.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's also that, like, as Tacitus says, if people read the entire text, he basically talks about how, like, morals and ethics were so strong in our people that, like, they didn't find vice funny. Nobody thought that, like, you doing something that was questionably, like, if it was moral or not, nobody was okay with that. So this idea that, like, these pagans were just out there just, being debaucherous and doing crazy ass stuff all the time, like, it's not. It's a little bit of an exaggeration. And I was going to ask Dana, like, along your perspective of somebody who has, you've had children, you do all these things, you are teaching younger women as a mentor. What is it that you would tell younger women about the historical role that you think is important that can lead to them having a better life today?
That's a great question.
Guidance from Grandma Dana.
Yeah, from Grandma Dana. One, in recognizing that our culture, because we're polytheists, there's duality, we have goddesses. Our religion, our people will respect you and care for you more than anyone else would. When people like to rail against the patriarchy these days, but that's not what it means to actually, like, be a man, have a strong male leader, things like that. So if you want to be with a group where you are valued, where we appreciate, like with our group of women at one of our recent get-togethers, we had from grandma all the way down to babies, multi-generational learning, multi-generational community, working against, like, the current school system where kids are separated by classes and age, and they're not working together. Our religion and our practices are communal. Looking at some of our hobbies, knitting, since some of us do fiber work, that was where you get together, you work out your community problems and things like that, where we all think, and Amanda and I have talked about this a lot, we all think we have to do everything by ourselves right now. You have to be a superwoman and do it all alone. Those aren't our values. Those are not traditional. You should have your community with you. You have your aunts, your grandmas, your cousins that all work together for those common goals. Women, and I have felt this way, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have, we feel alone and like we have to do everything. It is unnatural. That's not our history. There is a better way to do that, and we're really trying to kick that off here, and I think we're better for it. That's the mode that we operated under, and that's what is natural and right to us. And we've been robbed of that birthright for a while.
Well, and it's working for you. Like, I am seeing the results from people that I know that know you that are going, and I'm seeing how their lives are getting better because they're actually doing, it's like guys when we're growing up, we have the manabund. So it's supposed to be, like where I had a brotherhood. I had guys over around me that we would fight for each other. Whatever we needed to do, we would do whatever we needed to do for each other. We were a brotherhood. And as you get older, you realize that like you develop that into a family, but you always have that strength because like you go through all these learning lessons, and women are typically missing stuff like that. They don't have it. And I'm going to be a little bit honest, I've always shown a lot of respect to the women, but a lot of this comes down to how the women act, how they are very catty and very cliquey, and they're not as accepting as maybe they should be. But there can be external reasons for that. It can be because they don't feel, safe in an environment with a bunch of guys that just want to stand around and have dogs hanging out, listening to really loud death metal music that, and like drinking the whole time. And like, that's their idea of a cultural festival. Why would you want to bring your family to that?
Yeah.
Two
things.
Go ahead, Dana.
Oh, sorry, just two things to add on that are really important to me. One, you talked about other people saying I made their lives better. So whoever said that, thank you. I find that so touching. But you guys, my friends, have made my life better. I didn't, Alison, you talked about this a little bit last time, that there's a value of a woman, the way a young guy or a young person will look at them for childbearing age. And that's sad because I feel now that I have grandchildren, so I have a little bit more time to work with people and some more life experience. It is so much more rewarding now having all of these young women and families to work with, where I have people to share those experiences with. I learn from them. It keeps me young. We all have these skills to share. So that is so important. And what you said too with women, we can be our own worst enemy. And I think that's also a product of modern culture that is not natural to us, with women and men working together in the workplace and us feeling like we have to compete more because we're not part of a community. Again, not how we would operate. It would be a matter of extended community, and part of it, as part of a community, you are responsible and beholden to one another. You can't stab your friend or family member in the back when there are repercussions of it, because you have to answer to the community and face that person. So I think that's added to some of those catty attitudes with women, and it is terrible. We have been our own worst enemy. The men can be a little too welcoming when new women want to come around, but for us to welcome each other, and definitely the women in here that I have met are great that way, where we're really quick to welcome one another, give each other compliments, ask questions, bring each other into the fold, and that's not typical. So that also answers what you were saying before about how to bring women in, because we want you, because we welcome you, because we see a better way to live and want to include you there. It's some differences with the men and women too, and then I'll stop monopolizing this. I had a few experiences lately that put some things into perspective for me in community building. Men are geared toward growth and making it bigger and greater, and that is what you do. That's how you get those resources and get us our homes and do all those good things for us. But men will have a different standard with who they accept as part of the community to get that growth and do those things, where women want we want that stability and predictability and safety. So we also have a different standard and screening process and trusting those instincts in our ambassadorship. So sometimes when men will think we might not be as welcoming, and sometimes that's with other men because we have those safety standards. So that's a matter of communications and the differences with our goals as men and women too.
My wife is very big into her intuition of like, I told you this person was a bad person, and then we've all had bad experiences in communities, but that
see all the women nodding.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I fully understand that. And I also understand that there's something to be said about the quality of men these days, that they need to man up and kind of take on their end of their responsibilities at the same time. But I've also seen it, firsthand, where women make it very hard to bring other people around. Especially like if like you have a friend who you're a male and you have a friend who is a female who's just interested. Well, I'm married. I'm married, I'm happy, I'm good with everything. But I have a lot of friends who want that. They want to be married. So when you're talking about like guys are excited because there's women coming around, well, yeah, because you're finally getting to see a culture grow. So we're kind of talking about the idea of like they want family. So people are coming to this with the idea of like sometimes like they approach it kind of weird and they're treating it like it's supposed to be like a dating, site or some shit. And it's like not everybody's here for that. Some people just want to be able like to come and have a good time. We'll host events and experience the joyfulness of what a culture is supposed to bring to us and how that can make us better people and make us feel better, healthier. And I think that until we can get to the point where women can be open to helping to organize and be involved in communities without stifling it, because like it goes both ways. Purity spiraling can always stop everything in its progress. Now you always have to maintain standards. Like there's certain things that you cannot like deviate from. It's just like, nope, this is, once you're past this line, it's not acceptable. But how do we ever plan to grow if we're never willing to plant the seed and actually see it go to fruition?
Yeah, an online community is not community, and that is so important too, because if you're not meeting and practicing in real life, you are not part of the community.
Yeah,
and it won't go anywhere.
It's not real.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's one of the biggest issues that so many people have. And I'm not going to derail it too far from what, one of you guys else is going to touch upon this new, the present age of what we're talking about. But people go online and they see these conversations and there's a lot of fighting and hostility and like just a lack of general respect for each other in just normal everyday conversation. Something that should not turn into a fight starts turning into name calling and weird stuff, like, and it pushes people away from it. But they also are going online and they're seeing all of these somehow social media influencers who pop up out of nowhere, and they have all these followings, but they are theologically so bankrupt from understanding the culture. They're not able to connect any of the dots. They're not telling you how a system of beliefs is all coherent and interplays with each other. They're just telling you random bits and pieces of information. And I think that is a major problem that we're seeing in the online sphere. And I've seen women, like, they've messaged me to ask me about an opinion on somebody because they keep seeing all this bad information about them online. And it's like, how do we ever get to a point to where we can safely have larger community events where women feel like they're involved in the present today? Like, what steps can we actually take to make people want to come to this first off? Like, I know a lot of women, like my wife, can't come to certain things if people look like they're all dressed up like nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
She works in the medical field. She's going to go to, but it's also like, why would that be appropriate to come to a cultural event like that? That damages us. So with that, I will let any of you talk.
I got to say, because that's an issue that the Urban folk has dealt with over the past 15 years, a lot. And that imagery is going to be the downfall of any healthy growth. And my take on it is kind of twofold. One is, if we want to attract air quotes, normal people, but people who want to be part of a community, who want to help it grow, who will contribute to the community in a healthy and happy manner, we have to be that. We can't be edgelords. We can't be, throwing up the symbols and all that nonsense. That's not heathenry. That's not Germanic heathenry. And we have to call that out. And we have to say, hey, you know what? No, that's not what we are here for. The other aspect is aesthetic. Building an aesthetic that is going to attract people. Beauty attracts people who want to be part of something beautiful. So instead of having pictures online of your hot dog barbecue with the guys sitting around in their chairs drinking Jack Daniels in front of a ramshackle Hoff, you know, post a really well put together, gorgeous altar offering. And, you know, post pictures that are aesthetically pleasing, make things that are aesthetically pleasing. That's going to draw in people who want to do that. So it's be normal
It's so
the key.
wild to me that like you can just ask people to just dress up a little bit and people freak out.
Freak out.
And you're
Freak
just like,
out.
all we're saying is like there's no reason to come here wearing like cut off jeans and you know like a Motley Crue t-shirt and you haven't washed your hair in 3 weeks. Like why?
Hey,
what the hell?
we get that you boys ride your motorcycles together, but listen,
Yeah.
family event. Could you please, I have a hanger here for you to respectfully hang up your vest. Could you please not wear your vest at the family event?
We're lucky we haven't had too many issues. And like when you're talking about the aesthetic, I mean, I will say one of the things the Yerman folk does do best is the arts and the aesthetics. And I mean, you guys do great things. But I'm just saying like specifically the arts and the aesthetics. Yeah. Like,
art is inspiring. And that's
but you guys have done a very good job giving people a generalized idea and blueprint. Like I told you before, we used to put on events back in like 2016, 2017, before we really were connected with you guys. And it was always based off of everything from the Norina Society, like how a Vesla is set up.
Mm-hmm.
But there was always things I was missing. Like, and it was always, once I came to Folkish Summer Halloween, it literally just clicked. And I was like, we're missing all the things with the aesthetics. We're missing how, like, this is a little bit more structured in ways that I can tweak what we've done before to kind of mesh. And then people see something similar. And I'm like, and it just worked. And the aesthetics is what draws people in. And, like, that's why I think we need to utilize our women and, well, you know, people who are good with aesthetics. Like, everybody has a role to fill, and everybody should be partaking in something in a community. Otherwise, you're just there.
You're
not
leeching.
really a part. Yeah, you're not really a part of the community, but you're just there. And it's like you have something to contribute. So from that, like, Hrafna, what do you think about this? What do you got on like the modern time? What can we do to, you know, you're in a similar position where like you know, going, well, I don't know how deep you want to go into your personal stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So like, I'm in sort of a unique position right now. I have a couple things written down, and then I can kind of get into that maybe if there's time. But I would say definitely the most important thing that we should be doing is rejecting degeneracy. And I don't just mean like sexually, but I'll get into that in a second. And promoting normalcy. And like Alison said, we need to desperately clean up our image of the so-called common person. Like your average heathen is not looked upon, I would say, favorably by a lot of society. There are a lot of great people in these circles, certainly, a lot of very like upstanding, honorable, morally coherent people, but yeah, just in general, we could do that. I can say, you know, time and time again, I've said, we don't actually need more propaganda that's aimed at extremists, and we don't need more like discussion of who the enemy is, you know, quote unquote, the enemy is or might be. We don't need any more infighting, certainly. We've had enough. I've seen all the points. I don't need to see any more points, okay? What we do need, though, is we need to start paying service to, like, the fence sitters and the bystanders, because really, you know, it's not the people, it's not me and the people before me right now who, you know, need to be convinced that I'm not a crazy extremist, right? You guys all already know that about me. It's like everyone else who doesn't know anything about us and could stand to be convinced by those things. So,
public image.
So sorry?
You mean like the public image?
I do, yeah. I do. And also just like even like people who, you know, might be like your acquaintances that just don't know very much. A lot of people are scared to ask me questions because of what they see online about people like us. You know, so I work very hard to be friendly.
Well, and this, it's just to touch upon this exact thing. One of our guys that's in the Pacific Northwest, he works in a job that requires him to have to deal with like police and government stuff because he runs like halfway houses and all these things. Great guy. Yeah. And he called me and he was like, so they brought me into this room and they had up on this board, they had inclusive Asatru, folkish Asatru, which one are you? He was going to lose his job over it. And he was like, mine's not up there. I'm Setian. And they said, you're what? And he goes, I'm Setian. I'm a Setian heathen. And they were like, oh, okay. And he got to walk out. No problems. And he was like, it's because that's why we were doing what we were doing, to break away from that bad imagery of what they have done in the past. So I completely agree with you there.
I use the term Setian as well. Like I do not use the term folkish almost at all unless I'm talking about specifically what that word means.
Right.
Because I can't. So like I live in Canada, and a lot of effort in Canada right now is being exerted by my federal government to cap what I can say and cap how I can practice and control which of my ancestral symbols that I am allowed to display publicly. And so one of the things that I think is really important for people to consider, especially if you want this to be like not global in the sense of like the whole globe, but you know what I mean? Like if you want to bring people into this, if you want to bring people into this that are not American, who like don't have free speech in their countries, we have to be a little wiser and a little more discerning about how we are coming off to other people. The other thing that I wanted to talk about just briefly, because I touched on it before, like when I say degeneracy, I don't just mean like sexual degeneracy. I mean that also, but I also mean like antisocial behavior. So like heathenry, in my understanding, which is, you know, it's like I'm getting there. But heathenry, in my understanding, is a very pro-social movement. That's actually one of the things that drew me in this direction in the first place. And I'm very interested in the ways that we can sort of quash this thing that keeps happening, where like normal, rational people take, you know, 2 left steps out of their regular social circles and see just like, antisocial behavior, name calling, infighting. You know, one of the things that made my husband very like hesitant when I sort of said, you know, I sat down one day and I said, hey, here's what I've been thinking about a lot. And I told him a little bit about what's going on. And he looked around and he was like, I don't know, you know, like I want to keep you safe kind of thing. So that's been a conversation that we have in my household a lot.
Good. You know, that means that he's at least paying attention and like involved in it, and he cares enough to want to protect you, because you have to protect your family, otherwise you're a piece of shit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, he's been wonderful for that, you know, and the more he learns, the more he grows to really respect people like the people I'm sitting with right now. And you know, I think to that end, like to sort of wrap up everything that I have been saying, I think that the current and next generation should feel very empowered to take on a sort of like moderating role, moderating both in like moderating actual behavior, but also pulling people, to maybe be a little bit more moderate. Like, I don't know. I feel like all the time I'm saying this is insane. Like, I feel like a lot of the time I'm the one who's going, this is crazy. I'm just going to put my phone down. You know, there's a time and a place. Sorry.
I fully agree with you. And I think that like what this is a result of the fact that it's a perpetual online thing. And the real path forward, in my opinion, this is just my thing, is that we have to develop fellowships like we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has to be the next step. And like, that's why everybody, you know, like we're spread out all across America, just this group right here in different regions and stuff. And yet we have a lot more people that are wanting to do this. They want to be involved. They want to find out what a community is like. So it's, I hate to say it, but like a lot of churches also go through stuff like this when they do things online, because people are just bored and they're perpetually online talking shit to each other rather than doing something productive with their lives.
Well,
I've seen it happen. Sorry.
I was going to say, sorry. there's no consequences for chattering online. You
Nope.
can
No.
you can say whatever you want, which I will caution, Hrafna, you said that your government is cracking down on things that you can say. Nobody in the United States should think for a second that they are free to say whatever they want anymore. We have seen firsthand that that is not the case. And don't think that your online presence doesn't have real world consequences with what you say, whether it's political or not political, or infighting. Infighting has real world consequences in the sense that it is, even for us, where we have built a community, we have made something really impressive. I am so cautious about people coming around, not just because I'm a woman and, pattern recognition and all that good stuff, but because there is so much infighting, and you see this nonsense online, and you can't help but be reserved and say, okay, why are you asking me where I live? What's your ulterior motive here? Those are the real world consequences of fighting online.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
People are assholes. Like, and like the stuff that does happen online to some of our guys, that just for arguing about, like, we're usually arguing about stuff in the mythology, and we've had some pretty messed up stuff happen that we can talk about later. But before we get too off track, let's keep going with this. Now, did you have anything else to add, Hrafna?
Yeah, just really, really quickly. I
Nope.
do just want to say, though, because I can anticipate. I have this great female pattern recognition that's going off in my head right now. I can really anticipate the, like, what about comments. And I just want to say, like, I think there is a time and a place for, like, I'll call it cultural isolationism. You know what I mean? Like, there are certain practices in heathenry that we should keep very, like, quiet, and it's just for us. And it's the same in the church, if you've ever been to the Catholic Church, right?
Initiative.
Yes, exactly, yeah. But I think, like, it is very important, again, I'm going to go back to, I would love it if we could, and I've been thinking about how to do this myself, but I would love it if we could do something that would be, like a podcast or something that's a little bit easier to digest than, like, mountains and mountains of literature. Because I love sitting down and reading all day, but not everybody does. And so I want something that is an outreach, and I've noticed this in my own life too. It's like, if we could do a normal person's guide to heathen outreach for curious and ignorant Christians, Wiccans, and atheists, that would save us, like, so much trouble, you guys. It would be so much fun. I would love to do something like that. But the thing is, right, like, you have to be personable. You need to be really friendly. Be friends with other people. Nobody wants to be friends with someone that's mean to them. Nobody wants to be friends with someone who calls them a Christ cuck. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I am easy to get along with, I think. And so I have not really had that much trouble, like, talking to my very Christian friend group about my beliefs and everything. And they all seem like, not like they're lining up to convert or anything, but it's like they're very receptive, and it's been very easy to have these conversations for me, and I just don't struggle with it. So I just think we should be excellent to each other.
Yep. No, we have a lot more in common with traditional cultures than people think. Like, there's a lot of very similar underlying views. That doesn't mean they're the same culture or anything, but, like, there's a lot of, like, very traditional values that are placed. Saxa, did you have anything going into this whole idea of, like, today, what did we do to kind of make things more palatable for women and families? Like, families, that's what we're talking about mostly, but, like, because, like, women come with families. If the families aren't having a good time, like, what are things that we can do? What are things that you guys do? What do you give for advice on this?
Well, to really expand off of this portion of the conversation, it really boils down to deeds, not words, and how we act speaks volumes. Whether it be online or in person, how we act speaks volumes. And this is not just a guy thing. This is a female thing too. If you're coming to ceremony, or if you're coming to gatherings and you're acting catty, or you're dressing like, I'm going to say it, like slut, nobody wants, Yeah, I said it. If you're dressing like that, other women are not going to want to be around that, or they're not going to want to bring their kids around that. I have daughters, I have sons. I don't want my sons to see women dress a certain way and think that that's okay. I don't want my daughters to emulate anything like that. I want them to see families. I want them to see wholesome relationships. I want them to see, grandparents with their grandkids, because they should understand family. Taking that a step further too, from an outside perspective, I do also have very close friends who are not of our faith, and they aren't afraid to ask me questions because they know I'm going to give them an honest answer. And I am very open about our faith. I'm very transparent in what we believe, what we don't believe, and the aspect of how some people utilize our culture or our faith as a political standing. We separate that completely. I don't care what anybody's politics are. I'm not here for politics. I'm here for culture, family, and faith. And
Right.
and some people intertwine those. Yes, there is an element of some type of politic and even like a hierarchy within a culture, but in modern construct, like what is it, in the 50s or 60s, they'd say you'd go to Thanksgiving, you never talk about politics or religion at dinner. Like those are the rules.
Yeah, they considered it rude.
Yeah, they considered it rude, but we have so much to build off of with the family unit. And I think for a while there, we were too scared. And from an advice perspective that I wanted to give for women is, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to say, yeah, I'm Setian, or I'm a heathen. And a lot of people may just bypass the heathen, but if they hear that word Setian and they don't know what it means, hopefully they'll ask questions, and hopefully they'll ask the right questions. And if you're acting right, if you're presenting yourself as an upstanding person of society, if you're being respectful to people you don't know, if you don't necessarily have to dress nice, but if you're a presentable, functional human being, you're going to be much more approachable and able to answer those questions when people ask, and they're going to be curious. So I think that is a big step forward.
I never have issues with people friends or acquaintances coming to me to ask questions about like this kind of stuff. I've never once had them turn and like start talking, badly, nothing. But I think it's how we approach the situation. A lot of people that are new, they get kind of headstrong, and they come into this from like a political background. So they come into it from like this mentality of like they have to be the right, person, and they don't understand that they haven't learned anything about the culture yet, so they shouldn't be arguing for it. They should just understand that like they're there to learn. But I think that so I see them, they enter a conversation with hostile intentions rather than like someone asks us a question. We're able to sit down and be like, okay, well, this is how we break it down. This is where it comes from. And this is why we try to make, the theological reconstruction, as we're always talking about.
And some of it's defensive too. And so people need to not be so defensive with it.
Not everything's a fight. It's like we can have
Exactly.
conversations, and we can also disagree. Like it's okay if we don't agree on specific points. Like something right now, I know Dana, she probably has a very good perspective to add into this. I'm also curious, Dana, going into like what we're discussing here, but with your, unique, I guess like venture that you're doing and all the actual like, you're not just talking about practical application or theory. I'm sorry, you are doing practical application. So what is it that you do to make these people feel welcome, as far like how, we have a group out here, we have women. What can they take from advice from you to like figure out how they can do this to get more people involved, to make it more family friendly? Like what are some steps you think that would work?
It's not just me, but and again, well, I haven't met Hrafna in person yet. Hopefully will. But for any of the ladies in here, they're all doing those same things where they make other women feel welcome and make it a priority. So when I met Amanda, when I met Madison, when I met Alison, we do ask people how you can help. Again, for focusing on the women things, it's not just to focus on the women, but because we do things communally and we're more comfortable in those spaces. we do have women only get-togethers so that we could like talk and work things out and talk about how to bring culture into the home and practice with our children and bring more people in. I think the biggest thing is reaching out. Where in the past, again, newer to practicing heathenry right now, but I've been a member of all kinds of other groups over like the last 30 years. And women showing up as kind of an accident. They would be an accessory to whatever like guy came with them. And then that modern competition and then came into play. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. So reaching out and making women and children a priority is the easiest and best thing you can do. Do that with food, do that with games. For the women in Wisconsin, a lot of us, live like 1 to 4 hours apart, but we make time for one another because it's a priority to us. So it takes some work, but we're all happier and better for it. So just start.
But when you're saying like, okay, like food and stuff like that, or like games, right? Like, do you guys do a lot of games? It's like if you're doing like the women's retreat, I don't know if you'd be doing games, but well, maybe, right? Like you guys play like some fun games and stuff, kind of, or not really?
We plan to do stuff. We have them out. It's easier with women. We're all, again, like for us, we all like participate, talk. We're all pretty comfortable, but we'll have a schedule of activities. So it might be religious discussion. It might be crafts. There is the food.
Yeah.
But once you to get us together in a room and we have that common thing of our faith, like a lot of heathens, we don't keep a schedule, but we have a great time and we're very engaged. So just have a plan, have some food, and have a space, and then get women together in that setting. And it's not hard to get us started. So I think a lot of people, they just don't consider the women, and sometimes you don't have them to get started. So like Hrafna was saying, and we've all said, be for boys, just be a little like more normal and welcoming, and optics and all those things absolutely do matter. We're not just an like anti-Christian reactionary like club to hang out. So if you don't have women, start there. But then for women, just do the work and reach out and be inviting and have that space. It's I want to add things to like make it more complicated and say we have some formula, but we just do that. We're just welcoming and we do the work and we make an effort to see each other.
Okay, Hrafna.
Yeah, like I'm not a part of any group yet. I'm hoping that post my move I will be, but the work is hard, but the ideas are very simple. Like it's just like be nice, be normal, do something together. This is not rocket science. I don't know.
Well, one of the things
we all like crafts.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even just that too. I mean, like a prime example, and it's not you have to just all of a sudden bring other women. Like it could be a simple thing of if you're attending an event, and a lot of times at some of these events, there's only a very, very small handful of women, 1 or 2, maybe 3. And a lot of times they're already somebody's wife or daughter, and they're just kind of expected to handle everything. And if they are handling it, even as a man, all you say, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
What can I do to help? That is a huge thing. And if another woman who's even a guest sees that, or if another man sees that, it's like, oh, this is not just a woman's thing. Women want to help each other.
I also want to say, and this is one of those things where I know I'm being a little bit pedantic here, but it's not just how can I help? It's, hey, can I do this for you? Like if there's dishes that need to be done, or if there's a tray that needs to be brought out, or if, a craft needs to be set up, hey, can I set this up for you? Like being specific with the tasks that you're asking to do, because if you do only have 2 or 3 people who are trying to juggle 60 different tasks, asking how can I help can be a little tough.
It's too much, yeah.
Because now now you got to stop and think, well, what can this person do? How do I explain it to them? So like, hey, can I cut something up for you? Can I do this? Can be a little bit more specific? I know it's pedantic, but it does make a huge difference. And since I've already interrupted, one of the things that would really help us go far is to really focus on what we are for, what we're building, what we're pro. We are pro family. We are pro tradition with a capital T. We are all about preserving culture. That's what we're here to do. We're here to worship our gods and not make it about what we're against. Because that is one of the images that really, really turns us into the baddies.
Yeah, we're targeted at that point.
Yeah, we're targeted because we're anti this.
Yep.
We're anti that. And like, no, I'm not anti anything. I am pro.
My culture.
I'm pro culture. I'm pro, I'm for the gods. I'm here for the gods. I'm here to worship with my friends, with my family, with extended friends and family. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here to bitch about the fact that I had a really bad time in the Christian church.
Right. Well, and something like, I'm going to throw this out there too real quick and then give it to Saxa. But one of the things that I think that we could also do is kind of go over like ideas of like how we can, make it to where like women can be included. And so I'd give an example of like our events. When we're doing some of our events, we'll put restrictions on certain things. Like, we don't want people just walking around drinking hard liquor because it just makes it to where like more problems can come from it. So we try to keep it, a little bit more traditional, drink mead, wine, beer, a little bit, stuff like that. Or more specifically for women, we will design contests that we know women can do that are, some of them are games of strength because they're supposed to be, but some of them are like other tournaments for their skills. And I want to get into doing like baking contests and all these other things to make it to where they are providing something for the folk being included and also acknowledged, and I think that like those are kind of ideas that I think we're missing out on that we can touch upon, because people want to have these kind of, like, this is something I've always told Mark for a long time. One of the worst problems we have in heathenry is the fact that nobody knows what they're doing. So they want to do things, and it just takes somebody like us to kind of step up and be like, here, look, this is what the source says, this is how we can do it, right? And so I guess with that, like, Saxa, what did you have?
You're right on point with all that. It's having a purpose. It's knowing what you're going to be doing as far as in that community space, whether it be an event or even just a general get together. People want to feel valued. They want to feel valued within their involvement. And I would say, honestly, start looking at, I can't really speak to this perspective of, a single man, because I've never been one. But if you have families, even if your spouse, man or woman, if your spouse is not of the faith, if they're very new to the culture, very new to this, focus on what makes you guys happy. And that's going to draw in other couples or other families. Like me and my kids, we love being outside. We love foraging. I'm not as good of a foraging as Dana is, but it was like one of the first women get-togethers. Dana and I kind of like word vomited the entire time playing off of each other, because she's like talking about mushrooms and I'm talking about herbs, and it was beautiful. It was a really good connecting moment for Dana and I to really get to know each other. And there was other women there that, I got to meet Madison for the first time, and now it's just been fun to, go to her wedding and see her grow in her relationship with her husband. And, like, this is the next generation. And so when we focus slightly inward and what makes us happy, we're going to draw in that same connection with other people who have similar interests. And we're not all going to be the same, which is fine. But it's going to be a little more wholesome, and that people are going to feel valued and understood. And I think even if there are individuals who are single, who don't have that family base, they're still going to connect with individuals that are a part of these families, and they're going to be like adopted, and it's going to just continuously grow. So I would say focus on the family, and that community will slowly build.
One of the other things too that like we'll do when we're talking about like these things at events is we So one of my guys that helps put on the events, his wife is Christian, and she's a really great lady, really nice. So I sat down and like we'll have a great conversation. She's receptive to learning, and I we'll go to them and we'll be like, we want you to be a judge for something, like we did pumpkin carving contest. So we find ways to just try to get them to be involved, and we're like, we need you to pick this, and you're going to be the person giving the award out and stuff. Like, here, this is your little responsibility to help out with, and it makes it feel like it's more of a community environment. And like, to be honest with you, I can't do everything, and I don't want to. I want to see everybody else doing stuff. So like, I think that there's so many avenues, like things with kids. Mark Purrier, when he was here doing Veterinator, we had rattles made, and it's like things like that you can do. Those kids love those rattles. We just gave them rattles. We gave some of them some other things. We're like, this is what we want you to do. And it's like, that's during the procession. They were shaking them, having a great time. You see them all smiling, but they were taking it seriously. They were actually the people behind the guy that was carrying our burning sun wheel. They were standing right behind him. So like they were leading the procession, but like they loved it. And then the time before that, we gave all the kids little statues of the gods. Dana was a huge help with that. She shows up to our event, drives from Wisconsin to South Dakota, gets out of the car with Madison and Ox and all these other people, and just said, what can we do to help? And that is how you make things feel inclusive. In terms of like, not modern in terms of like inclusive, I guess, to everybody and anybody, but inclusive to our community. It makes everybody feel like they're a part of it. So Dana, did you have something?
Yeah, to add to that, one thing that not a lot of men know, and you'll see this too in work environments when you have a male boss and they struggle to motivate women. One thing we do and that you've done and that people should do with women is we like the positive feedback. We like to feel valued. So in a workplace, again, for a lot of times men, they want that tangible thing. They're happy with a raise to show that they're doing a good job. Not that we don't like money, but for women, if you just give them that raise without specific feedback as to why they're doing well, why they're a valued member of the team, it's hollow. We really like the praise. It's just part of it because we're more verbal and feely. So with women too, one, Kyle pointing out for Sumer Mall, like where you had me, Madison, and the other young lady taking place, helping with the Smurria rite, so that we had a place in the ritual itself. Mattered a lot. Obviously, all the things you had for kids, the lore, that apple cider that I'm going to need to get some from South Dakota pretty soon. You did a lot of things to make us feel included. And thinking here for the women, we all have like roles, and we talk about how valued we are. And for something like our recent diesel bloat and last year's too, we give each other feedback. We see who wants to take what role. We all know that we play an important piece in that. So again, if you're starting and you're trying to get more women involved, keep that in mind. We like to know what we're doing well, and we like to know that we have value and that we are appreciated.
And I will tell you that you guys inspired us to where when we can get the women to do it, because we lost one of our ladies. She just moved down to Texas, Mikey, that came out, that was helping to decorate the cart and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. She actually just moved down to Texas, but we still have a couple, and we're gonna get them to do the same thing where discipline will be done by the women every time. I think that's a beautiful addition. It may not be something that we know happened, but we know discipline happened. But like the fact that you guys came up with a reason behind it, it's supported, it works. It's great for the women to be involved. Like, there's almost nothing better that you guys could have came up with. That is such a cool thing that and I was so happy to see that you guys did it, and then I heard the results, and I was like, see, something's working when people are that excited about it. And I'm hearing about it from states over, from people that you guys didn't even know that I knew. And, and I'm just like, that's awesome. I was so proud and so happy to hear about it. And so thank you for that contribution, because I think it's great.
Looking at these other Wisconsin ladies, great job, guys.
That's what I'm saying. I know all of you guys are involved. And Madison, from your perspective, I know we've talked about the aesthetic and, some of the ideas. You've also gone through, I don't know how, I guess, like, open you want to be about some of the stuff in the past, but going through situations that make you question, I don't know if like where you're at or what you're doing, leading you to heathenry or, while you're in heathenry. So what is your perspective on what people can do now to make people like you and then other young people, because we need the young people. The next generation needs to come in. It can't just be us. We're old. So it has to be kids. It has to be, young women, families coming in, feeling like they're a part of it. So what would you say people can do?
So I will point out some issues that I've seen and reasons why I don't engage with certain groups or people, or kind of just ignore. First of all, this is kind of a very niche internet interest for majority of people. So that kind of attracts undesirables, is what I call them.
Yep.
Not really well-mannered people. Somebody mentioned there, I think it was Alison, that there has to be a purpose. That should be the focus. I agree. These undesirable people that come in, they don't really have a purpose in view. They just don't really, they're just like, oh, this looks really cool. Or they have the misconceptions from like the show Vikings and whatnot. You need to get them thinking about the purpose, and especially for the purpose of a spiritual community, not just for themselves, but for the community. People should learn how to be selfless, I guess. Really work not only for yourself, but for your people, to be a well-mannered folk. And I do say folk or folkish. I know that misconceptions with that can be negative. I've never viewed it like that. So,
well, it's different in different countries. They just have to be careful because what they're doing is equating it to the Volkish movement.
Yeah.
So we're looking at it from a different perspective. They're looking at it from an etymological perspective. So it puts a target on them. They don't need it. All tribal cultures are folkish by definition because tribes are ethnocentric. So like no matter what we're doing, we are always focusing on Germanic people. We're never focusing on anything outside. We just don't have to use qualifiers to say that every single time to make it a political point. It's already known.
No, it's totally cool. And I didn't update you, Kyle, but currently I'm kind of not attached to a group with a name. I love Wisconsin folk, and I love Dana and Amanda and Ox, and the talk of community and the upcoming Yules that are gonna be orchestrated. Very excited, but yeah, currently not attached to a group. That is fairly recent. That kind of goes in hand with ill-mannered folk. Not knowing how to behave in social settings is a huge one. I honestly, a good majority of people in this interest are like autistic to some degree. And whether it's like a self-diagnosed thing or like actually
socially retarded.
Yeah, a lot of us can, not react well in social situations, settings, not reading the room right. So that kind of kills the vibe for a lot of events. And, the people that are displaying the political symbols, propaganda, you're at a spiritual event. Politics, modern politics, I don't really want to be involved in seeing that stuff just because of the bad connotations that can come with it. And I find that those people are more focused on hate and anti this and anti that, which I'm a hater myself, but given the right environments and situations, you just read the room, man. And often with those individuals, they are very masculine, and that is very overpowering, and that is not inviting to women at all. Men should be men, 100%. But there's just, and I hate saying this, but like, there can be toxic masculinity. And, oh no, a vice word, I know, I'm sorry. But it can happen, and
or uncontrolled
we have
masculinity.
Uncontrolled. Yeah, like the lack of self-control and discipline and whatnot.
And that's the problem, is there's really lack of discipline, and those men are usually the weakest men. they're verbally abusive, and like
They have a lot of issues.
well, it's just it's a sign of a broken culture. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
broken.
And it's but this is the goal, is like, so I mean, we could be focused on all the things that people have done, and and I get it, and there's millions of things we can say, but we have to do something at some point to give people that hope of how we can be better. How do we do more? And that's why I say, like, when you're going to, like, for a perfect example of this, right, Madison, would be, what is it that brought you to Saxa and Dana and made you feel like you were a part of something, even as a even as like a a guest coming to meet these people for the first couple of times? What made you feel like you were welcome?
Definitely, just they're so nice, really. And it's hard as a woman to be truly seen, I guess we can say, other than the feminine aspects we are normally seen as, like, things with sex or whatever. That's normally what we're seen as when we come into these spheres, I guess. So when other women actually acknowledged me, Amanda and Dana, actually acknowledging and inviting and motivating, and Dana personally is like one of my mentors, and her constant like reassurance and advice to me is just, I mean, that's been since day one of meeting Dana. And I think what Amanda mentioned earlier, we just like instantly click, we kind of word vomit when we meet each other. Honestly, it's been like that with every single woman I've met in person. There's women that aren't in this, or even the Narena society chats or anything, but there's a great woman named Mel, there's Ashlyn, there's Miranda. I mean, very lovely women, and oh, Lexi too. Okay, I'm like racking my brain of all the women. So we're all very tight knit, and that's because we're so friendly and inviting. And we see when a woman is kind of standing off to the side and looking around like, oh, I don't know what to do, I don't know any of these people. We instantly go to that woman and we embrace her, and we're like, I'm so happy you're here. Do you need anything? Are you thirsty? Are you hungry? You want me to take your baby off your hip? Like, instantly just community, and I love it. And yeah,
well,
not
you're
only happens to me, but
you're a prime
everybody else.
example. You're a prime example of it. Because I'm going to boast on her for a minute, and Dana, because like we had a non-religious event this weekend, and how would we describe her? Well, one of my Klansmen, his wife, she's not necessarily of the faith, but plans on, hold on a second.
This is a perfect time for me to ask this while Sex is dealing with it real quick. We had a live a question from one of our guys, and he wants to know, how do you guys, hold on, let me pull it up so I don't want to misquote him. How do they live with such handsome husbands?
It's hard. You gotta fight off all these ladies. It's hard, honestly.
That came from your husband, Amanda. How do you do it?
Regularly scheduled, conversation.
I'm focusing on getting into the right country first, man. Let's
Right. Okay, so I am going to boast on Madison, and I'm going to boast on Dana real quick, because you talk about us being friendly and embracing, and you do that, and so I have to boast on you, because you made my Klansman's wife, I'm not going to use her name because she's not on any of these socials, and she's not a part of the faith yet, but it's the interactions that these women who aren't of the faith have. They notice it. If they have positive interactions, like you just going up and talking to her and making a point to talk to her and making her feel welcome, she noticed that. She pointed that out. She loved it, and she felt really welcomed. And this was a non-religious event. It was just our families getting together for a birthday party, and she felt welcome. She understood how many other people within our community of our faith community were attending, and she didn't feel left out. And she's very supportive of her husband. And she even made a point last night to say that, I support my husband in this, and I want my children to grow up knowing this, faith in this community, even though she's just not quite there yet herself religiously. And that's going to take time. But those types of positive interactions like Maddie's talking about, and actually doing them, deeds, not words, make a difference. And yeah, boasting back on Dana too. Yes, being like our mentor, I don't want to say leader because that sounds so cultish, but we call you're our folk mother. She's our folk mother. So
yeah,
very special
role.
term.
Yes, very much so. In a very honored position. But so did any of you guys have, Allison, did you have anything else to add about ways that you can make women and children feel included? You do a lot. Actually, this is a good thing for you to just give us some points of view, like putting people that are wanting to do something as a community, they have kids, how do they make them feel included? What do you do specifically for them?
Honestly, a lot of what was already talked about, including them. Our most successful FSH, successful is a weird word, but we had a task for everyone who was there. And it created every person felt like they belonged because they had a task to perform, because they directly contributed to the success of the event. So that's the big thing, is create tasks or events or activities that are going to include everyone. One of our main draws is the fact that we have so many different family-oriented activities. We have craft times for the kids and for the adults. We have, karaoke, and the karaoke is for everyone. And then, just as you said, having that person, hey, we need you to judge the mead tasting. Hey, we need you to take care of the hammer toss. You're going to be checking the distances and, having the kids pull raffle tickets. Yep. And I've said this before, just being normal, being happy out in the world. And, I work for a very devoutly Christian family. I work in a family business, a family-owned school and a family-owned business. And they ask me about the events. They want to know how it went. They're emotionally invested in our events being successful, because whenever I come back, I am so inspired to do more at work. I'm happy, and I'm so excited, and I have this wonderful energy, and they see that. And that behavior, just being happy and normal and enjoying what we do, is going to draw in people who also want to feel and live like that. Have things for everybody, enjoy what you do, and be happy out in the world, and be normal. That'll do it.
The be normal thing is really important. And it's just like, we're normal people. We're not doing anything like wrong. We're not hiding anything. We're literally talking about stuff our ancestors saw as a worldview, where, our place with the gods and how our culture can affect our lives and the community. And it's the biggest problem has always been those who kind of denigrate those ways or turn it into something that is not, political grandstands, and turning it into a movement of anti-Christian reactions, where then, everybody thinks like we never kneeled, or we don't have any like morals, and Christianity somehow came down and saved us. But it's ridiculous. It's like, we have so much, and we can have so much if we would just all work together to actually build up a culture, a living tradition, something that's unique to our own people, guided by the voices of our ancestors. And that is what theological reconstruction is. And then once we get done with this is what we've been focusing on to try to help all the communities that want to do this stuff, is we did the theological reconstruction. That's looking at the lore and having an argument for everything that we're trying to do, from every rite to every bloat, to every rite of passage, to why we celebrate the holidays we do, when everything we can make an argument for it, guided by our lore using a hierarchy system. And then from there, it comes down to revitalization. Revitalization is when those theological concepts become practical application in our daily lives. So I wrote up a thing about that where we're talking about spirituality and how that is like the internalized religion. It's like the expression, of our internalized religion. And I think that's, while we're doing all these kinds of discussions and talks, we're focusing on the idea of, what we can do to make heathenry better. So that leads us into this conversation of like, what do you guys, each one of you, I'd like to know from, your perspectives, what is it as like a final piece of advice that you would say you would give to heathens, worldwide that are just looking for advice from people? What do they do? How can this help them? Dana?
Sure. Before we do that, sorry to digress just for a second, since we were in gushing mode, for everybody on this call, first, Madison can't hear it, she can later, but she has been so enthusiastic and energetic and the first one to help and do things as part of our community.
Yep.
Like Alison, you should see her at FSH running like an absolute fool. It took me a couple of years to get to know her because she's so busy and does so much and has so many talents and so many things to offer. And then Hrafna, just getting to know you, and we've had a little bit of exchanges, but in the art community, you are supportive and encouraging and kind and complimentary. And for Amanda, you guys should see her hostessing. She is, like, again, kind and hardworking and so welcoming. And for the things that we talk about doing with welcoming people, she's way nicer than I am. And then again, Kyle, for like Sumer Mall and Veterinator and the things that you're doing to build real life communities. Like, just the people on this call are exceptional, and I want everybody who's listening to this to know that, because you're just awesome. All right, anyway,
Well, thank you.
so for my
Thank you
for
very
my
kindly,
advice,
Dana. Cheers.
thank you. Just wanted to have a little, spread a little happiness there. But so as far as like just words of advice for people, again, online community is not real community. Stop letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. With online culture, again, just being been around since before the internet was a popular thing, and it's a great tool to get to know generalities and education and know that you're not alone, but it's not real, and people will just can get so picky in some of the, I don't know,
Purity
and just
spiral.
their willingness to get to know people and their practices and things like that. Stop letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. Be part of a community. That's what this whole call is about, is building community. Know what you stand for. Be what you want to attract, and share that our religion and our traditions are rich and beautiful and fulfilling. So find or create your real life community.
Be what you want to attract is a great way to say that. I recently told people in our Germanic faith chat that I was like, if you guys continue to have low tier conversations, constantly arguing about race, you're always going to be stuck in this like loop. Do something better with your time. And I think it's an important message for people. Like, we know who we are. Let's move on. So we'll never, that's not an excuse for any kind of inclusive universalism. Like, we're staunchly against that, but it is it's a time to understand that argument has been settled. So we don't have to constantly focus on that when there's much more. Just my opinion. Madison, as you were going to say, what is your advice to the future of heathenry and what you would hope to see?
Yeah, so really, if you're needing self-improvement, and if you don't have people that you can seek out for advice, which I do strongly recommend, building those connections, friends or mentors, or if a relative is into this stuff as well. If you don't have that, you can And personally, what I did for a lot of it was reading lore and, sources of ancestral text, preferably first-hand accounts, which is kind of hard because a lot of that it doesn't really exist. So you go more towards the second-hand accounts. But yeah, just ancestral text, which can be free files to download or excuse me, or books to purchase. Personally, I read the Have 'em all every week. I mean, I don't know why I view that as such a motivational text, but I mean,
It's
obviously
a foundational
why I
text.
do. But yeah, I really use that to sort of build character, and I recommend it to everybody. I recommend it to one of my recent conversations with a friend is he's like, well, I don't know. I don't have any guidance. And I'm like, look, man, read this. Start here, okay? And we'll get other stuff later on. But I feel like that's a good foundation.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I think with that,
but
what
build
you're talking
community,
about.
please.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think like what you're talking about with the hierarchy of like sources, firsthand and secondhand, it's primary sources that are composed during the heathen era. So you'll have skaldic poetry, then you'll have the poetic edda, and then you have archaeological goods. Those are primary sources, and then you have secondary sources. So like Snorri is a secondary source because he's actually quoting the poetic edda. He's telling you it, but he's paraphrasing it, and he does it from a different school of thought. So we have so much information in our lore, and if people want to know more about the schools of thought, they can go to the Noriana Society YouTube channel, click on the playlist, and look at the mythological schools of thought, where we break down how academia has interpreted Norse mythology, thus creating a worldview that has shifted us from our ancestral traditions. And it's all because their primary method was to say that it all came from Christianity. And Victor Rydberg is the guy that basically destroyed that argument and kind of put us on the map to be considered a legitimate tradition. And it led the way to the epic method that we developed, and then Setianism, and everything we're doing. So that it's a progression from the 1800s to today, and we're still building. It'll never be complete. We're building and building, and that's what we need to do.
And we should build to be the best that we can be.
Correct.
So.
Yep. Absolutely. So, Hrafna, did you have anything you'd like to say about your final thoughts and future of heathenry and advice that you can give to people?
Yes, sir. I think that everybody has said such beautiful things today, so definitely listen to them before you listen to me, because I'm a noob. But I think just in general, be really excellent to each other. Like, be the best person you can be before you focus on being the most scripturally correct, human being ever. Kind of like Dana said, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Be open to having conversations with people who are not exactly like you. I think those can be very nourishing for everyone involved. I think that, the heathen community so far has been great. I mean, I joined Telegram before my business was ever a thing, and before my business ever mattered to me, really. At first it was just a hobby, but I joined Telegram just to make friends, and so far it's been very rewarding. I have a lot of fun here, for all of the carrot and stick talk that I maybe engaged in tonight. I've had a lot of fun, so it's been a really good thing. I think to the next generation of heathens, please read everything you can. Read everything always. You should be amassing, a personal knowledge base that is correct, hopefully, and you should strive to be well read.
I like it. Reading's definitely hard for a lot of people because language stuff, but there is hope. We do actually have ancestral poems that they're not in their original form, but like we were talking about the Poetic Edda, we have the remnants of it, and what's happening is they're mentioning an epic story that takes place from creation to destruction. The Voluspa outlines it, but it doesn't fill in all the gaps. So you actually have to use Snorri and other people to look for comparisons, and where Snorri is telling you, like, this is what this is, he may have had access to other stuff. Sometimes he just changes things, and we can show why. But so yeah, you should be, literate in your stuff. Like, the lore is the ancestral body of knowledge, so it's telling of our creation, our destruction, and our interactions with the gods. It's a mythic history.
One more thing just before I turn it over to someone else. Please, 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 even if learning a second language is not your goal, look, I'm Canadian. I have zero sympathy for monolinguals, okay? Learn another language. Learn the language that the texts of your forefathers was written in. It is so helpful. It is so helpful. I speak German and Icelandic, and it is just so helpful to have that knowledge base. So,
all right,
please.
so we're gonna finish up. We have Saxa and we have Alison. Which one of you guys wants to go first? Saxa? All right.
Can I go while I'm kid free?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So Saxa, same question, to you. What is it that you want to give advice for future of heathenry to, men and women? And yeah, like where do you see this going?
Yeah, for both men and women, I guess I have 2 points. First off, find your purpose. When you find your purpose, not just for yourself, but for what you want out of a community and what you want out of your faith, you will be able to bring that forth and attract that positive counterpart. I can go on day in and day out about the differences between Ox and I and our strengths and weaknesses, and that's why as a couple we work, because there's things that he's good at that I'm not, and vice versa. And when you find your purpose within whatever role, whether it be in your family, whether it be in your community, you're going to settle in and feel more comfortable. So find your purpose. And then secondly, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to be wrong and change your mind about something because you're learning. Don't be afraid to ask questions to, community members. Yes, unfortunately, some of it, a good portion of it is online, but in person, ask the question. Don't be afraid to answer questions when people ask you about your culture, your faith, and what your stance is on certain issues. Don't be afraid to speak your mind and speak your truth. And I think that's going to come full circle in feeling stronger. You're going to be seen as somebody who's very well equipped in a community setting, but you're also going to be seen as a strong community leader or community member. So I would say those 2 things for sure.
Very good. Thank you. And then finally, Alison, same question to you. What kind of advice do you have for the future of heathenry?
I've already said it, and I think this pivots perfectly off of what Saxa was saying with finding your purpose. Find out what you're here for. Why are you here? What brought you here? And be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself in life in general. When you're truly honest and you're able to self-reflect, that's how you grow. That's how you can figure out what your purpose is and what your role in the family, in the community is when you are brutally honest with yourself, positively and negatively. Self-reflect. I think that would be, if everybody could self-reflect and be honest, a huge amount of the issues that we're seeing online and in real life would diminish greatly. So yes, reflect, be honest with yourself and with others, and figure out what you are for, what you want to actually do. And yes, you can keep in mind what you're against, but more importantly, what are you actually doing?
Healthy expression of, is not geared upon what you're against, it's geared upon what you love. And so what you guys are describing is something that years ago Mark wrote a book called the Otis book. And inside of it is basically his first attempt at going over a philosophy by looking at, all the heathen lore and trying to pull out what we can look at for philosophical ideas. And he came out with the concept of odal, O-D-A-L. And so like we look at it as like an inheritance, but when you really break that down and you go to like cultural festivals, one of the coolest things that you'll see is that there are people there that their entire job is to make tea. And like that seems like such a simple thing, but like for 1,000 years or something, this person's family is the person that brought tea to this festival. And that's how they contribute. And it's like there's so many ways that you can do this stuff. And so this is what you guys, like, it sounded like you guys were all kind of agreeing on is, find something that you're good at that you can contribute to the folk when you come to these things. That's how you make things kind of seem more inviting, because it becomes more of a community aspect. But the other side of it is higher culture. Have a higher standard. Carry yourself to a higher, respect. Be dignified in who you are, and realize that, when you are representing yourself and in any capacity, you are representing your family lines. So like, it's not just you, it's your entire family that you are a representation of. And we should carry ourselves to the highest respects that we can. We want people to view us as serious people. We want to be taken seriously. And that is the Germanic soul. We're not here to just like be LARPers and play games. And this isn't just us hanging out wanting to be Vikings. This is us trying to understand our ancestral tradition and carry it forward with integrity and strength.
And also carrying it through the world. I think you touched on a point that we didn't really get into, but how you present yourself to the world is a reflection of heathenry as a whole. So, if you're showing up at the store in pajamas, that is a reflection of your community and heathenry. Be the higher standard.
Should always have higher standards. Absolutely. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Yeah, we definitely did about 2.5 hours of talking, it looks like. So I thank you guys. And once again, if you guys want to give your names and your channels, that way people can find you. Madison?
Hi, yeah. So again, I'm Madison. I have a channel called Soul's Daughter, all lowercase. My other name is Moss. And thank you for having me, Kyle. This was really fun. And I actually learned too, and my perspective is broadened.
Absolutely. And that's Souls, SOLSDAUGHTER, right?
Yep.
Soul's Daughter. Yep,
all lowercase. Thank you.
Great. I'm glad you came. It's good seeing you again. Hrafna?
Yeah, so I go by Hrafna on Telegram. I am available at Wheat and Sky, which is my Telegram channel. I am available at Wheat and Sky, which is my Instagram. And I am available at Wheat and Sky, which is my Substack.
Wheat and Sky. I love it. Great artwork. Dana, did you want to go over anything or no?
Just if anyone, I try to be a Luddite. I'm pretty low tech, but if anyone did have any questions, want to reach out, talk about building community with women or anything, I am on Telegram at Awsmom.
Okay, perfect. Alison?
I am on Telegram. I'm sort of halfway between everybody else being present and whatnot, and Dana, where I'm just like, oh God, it's technology. But I am on Telegram as It's Not Alison with one L, Alison. But if you're interested in learning more about the Ermine folk and what we do, you can go to erminefolk.com. And we do also have a store that supports our organization, which, by the way, we are a 501c3 organization. We are an established religious group. So if you would like to purchase religious-related items, ritual items, and whatnot, we do have a store, futhark.org.
Awesome. Yes, and I have bought many things from you guys. And also every time we do events, you guys send us gifts and we love it. So we're big supporters of the Ermine folk, and we look forward to seeing your success.
And yeah, well, we're supporters of you guys as well at the Narena Society. I'm always pretty impressed with the research that you guys do, and I love seeing that seeing other groups put on larger scale events. It's really, really nice to see other groups do it well, because it also kind of, not to sound selfish, but it does take away a little bit of the pressure of being like the only group that is not a national organization that does, you know, whatever, that can put on these large events. It's like, oh my gosh, there's other people doing it and they're doing it well.
That's where you guys have to take pride in the fact that you've helped to inspire other people by showing the missing pieces and the ideas and you know, the system where everything then just kind of
falls into place.
Exactly. Like, and that's what I was saying before. Like, when you look at a cultural festival from what it is, it's like there's three main parts. You have the games, the lake, Leik, and that's like the fun time, the life, the expression of life when everyone's coming together. That goes into the raid, REID, that's the procession, that's the walk. And like most traditional cultures, they actually go on a walk. Like, it could be miles to get to their sacred spot. They carry with them the statues. And we found Josh from Kavasir found a perfect line. We were trying to figure out about if we should bring the Blopathi down to the ritual area or do it somewhere else. And Josh said, well, actually, you know, this quote from, I think it was the Havamon, it said, washed and fed did a man ride the bloat. So we were like, okay, so we do it before the procession then. And that was what started our procession. We did the bloat bath and then went right into the procession. So everybody showed up. They were ready to go right into the sacred space. And then Saxa, do you have any final advice for heathenry?
No final advice. I think we kind of covered it. But again, if anybody has any questions, they can find me on Telegram as Saxa. Otherwise, I am also on Facebook. But Boarlord, Boarlord, one word, Boarlord LLC is our Telegram account. Both Ox and I run that. Otherwise, on Facebook and Instagram, it's Boarlord Botanicals. And then we have a website as well, boarlordllc.com. So if anybody who needs to reach out, they can do so in many facets.
And I have to also acknowledge Saxa. I love them because I would not be able to have made the 9 herbs mead without her help. Specifically, like her generosity that led me to even trying it. I had no plan on doing it until, I had people ask me, and I was like, nope, because I wasn't going to spend the time trying to find all those herbs in my area, and that's not my area. I don't have time for that, and I don't know it. And then she just said, here, and she sent me a bunch, and I can't wait for you to try it. So.
I'm very excited. Thank you.
Yep. So, well, I thank you guys again, and I guess, the only thing I can really say is that we plan to, after this is released, we plan to have a men's conversation where we're going to sit down and do this, and then we may even do a men and female panel and sit down and grab like 2 or 3 women and men and just have a conversation going back and forth. And really get down to how do we advance how do we help legitimize what we're doing in the world, like in the eyes of the world, I should say.
Did you just say legitimize?
Yeah.
I was wondering the same thing.
Is that not a word?
That is
I
not a
wasn't
word.
say anything, but
So we're gonna edit that out. All right. What do you mean that's not a word?
It stays.
Legitimize.
Yeah.
And it stays.
Oh,
it stays.
Man.
Yeah, leave it in.
I hit this pen too many times, apparently. Thanks, Dana. Blaming her, but that's awesome.
Why is it Dana's fault?
When someone asks me how this went, I'm going to be like, well, it was like 85% good, and then I fucked that up. So, yeah.
So it was great until Kyle ruined everything.
Honestly, you mispronounced a word. Everyone get him. Like, get this man. Get him.
Yeah, you guys should. And, what's going to be even funnier is I'm going to send it to Vernon. And I don't know how, I know he's been super busy. So we're just going to see how well this works out, sending it to him and having him edit it. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. That was great. Everyone have a good night.
Thank you.